Big crop, Dan.
That was up a little bit shallower on the break.
Right up on top. I seen that fish.
Got him.
Yeah, nice crop. Another crappo. Not a netter yet, but not a bad one.
Yeah.
Not a bad one. I can flip them in.
Be careful.
Whoa. Hang on. Ooh, he could just come off. You know, there's really, you know, these are nice crappies, for sure. For sure. You know, most people fish for crappies, you know, in spring of the year all over the country. The spring crappie bite is when they really are easy to get, and people love catching crappies, so they get worked over pretty good in spring. Up where we live in parts of the South, in the winter months, where they gang up by the hundreds and the thousands, they get worked pretty good again. But actually, the least amount of pressure that you see on crappies, it's in the middle of the summer. Like we're on now, look, a beautiful summer day. It's the middle of July. I've seen about 7 or 8 boats on here. Nobody's crappie fishing. And this is the time in the lakes that we fish that these crappies make heavy use. They're living in the weed beds, in them. And I know we're gonna get some big donkeys today.
Closed captioning is provided by Smooth Moves, adjustable boat seat suspensions for a smoother ride.
You know, the funny thing is, the majority of anglers go after the crappies when the picking's easy in the spring and the fall. They can see the fish. Midsummer like this, these weed beds are massive and they're just overwhelming for crappie fishermen. Guys don't take the time to go in there and look for them, but they can definitely be had.
Fishing any massive weed beds on a giant body of water can seem overwhelming. There's just so much lake and so many weed beds. How or where do you start? Well, that's a great question. Take a look at this lake. Pretty overwhelming, right? And to think the entire perimeter is covered with thick weed beds out to 12 foot. So here's a good rule of thumb to start your search for midsummer crappies on weed lines. First off, try picking apart a section of the lake. Don't get overwhelmed with the entirety of the whole body of water. From our experience, shallower basins like 20 to 30 feet at the deepest are best. Try to steer clear of the deep basin part of the lake. Many times, shoreline breaks are far better than offshore structures. Next, on this particular lake, we are fishing the shallow weed line, and cabbage is king. These crappies seem to gravitate towards sparse patches of this form of weed versus the thick coontail or milfoil beds. The other thing to remember, in many of our northern natural lakes, cabbage grows shallower than the other form of weeds, so the 8 to 12 foot cabbage patches are key pivot points. Rule number 1, start searching for weedline crappies at prime feeding times, like the 2 hours before dark or overcast days with a little light wind. You just want to up your odds of bumping into these schools. Number 2, fish fairly fast. Use little spinners or swim plastics or cranks. You want the dumb and active ones to give you a sign of life. Then you can slow down and pick it apart. Number 3, keep your eyes peeled for any activity. It could be bait fish flushing, loons feeding, fish dimpling, or any sign of life. Where there are bait fish, there are predators. Number 4, if you get any fish bites, make a mental note. Oftentimes, many fish will be swimming together. It could be rock bass, bluegills, or pike mixed right in with the crappies. Rule number 5, and this is the most important, there is such a thing as sweet spots in weed beds. For whatever reason, fish will often be attracted to certain areas in weed beds year after year, and doing a little homework can often pay big dividends for years to come. Keep in mind, we are fishing the shallow weed line, but there are times on certain lakes where crappies will use the deep weed line walls, but that is a whole different story.
Got him.
Nice. Another crap?
Crap.
Man, I gotta switch to tube.
This segment is brought to you by Big Bite Baits, designed to bring the big bite to your line.
She ain't as big as those other ones. I can flop her in, Dano.
What do we got on, son?
It ain't a crappie. Maybe it is.
Magnum.
Big Rocco. Nice average fish. You know, the lake that we're on here, I know has got fish pushing 14 inches. I caught them out of here and bigger. These are those just nice eaters. Look how healthy they are. What they're doing here this time of the year, if you look, I can't see them here right now, there's pods of minnows. They're eating loads of perch minnows. We'll see big schools of them. They're about this big. And they're scooting all over the top of these weeds. And the areas that those perch are in, those young of the year perch, is where these crappies are piling up. And we got a stretch of weed line here that's probably 50 yards long. And I'll bet you, if you were to take all the weeds out of there and leave the crappies right where they're at, I'll bet you there are 150 fish in there. Maybe even more than that.
Oh yeah, school's a little perch.
You see them under the surface?
Yeah, they're right here. That's what's schooling up out here. The little finger.
This year's hatch?
Yeah, look at them right there.
That's what they're eating. I seen something.
Yeah, like, look like, there's one.
Oh, Dan. What are you... Oh.
Nice, another crappie. He's coming
Yeah,
up.
look,
Fish is
he's
coming up. Look at him
pretty high.
sharking.
Look at him. He's coming really high.
Yeah. Oh, he wants to leap.
He's coming. He
Leaping
thinks he's a bass. You know,
That's
this is
a
not
nice one. You want
this
me to
is
net
a
him?
pretty good one.
Hang on.
This is a little bit better with that 5 pound. That's a netter there, Dan.
Whoa, Johnny on the spot.
All right, there you go. There you go. I like that one.
Yeah.
I like that one.
You want me in the crappie tournament with you, don't you?
There is crappie tournament. Yeah, you know, that's how popular these fish are these days. Yeah, you know, I've watched a number of television shows, and you pick up tricks. There's a series, there's tournament series, quite a few tournaments down south for crappies, and they become really, really, really popular. You know, there is something magic about a crappie. There's when you look at them, I don't know what it is, but yeah, I do. People like to eat them. That's guaranteed for sure. But the other element, you look at the fish, there's something about it that is exciting. You know, I fished with phenomenal hardcore tournament walleye fishermen, musky nuts, all of these guys at one point or another throughout the year. If there's a hot crappie bite going, they put their musky gear away, they put their bass gear away, they put their walleye gear away, and they take advantage of it. It's one of those fish that's got a little bit of magic to it.
Ooh, Crappo, nice.
Crappo, I went to a little, look at that, Dano.
Yep.
I put a little curly tail on. Nice one, huh?
Yeah,
We'll
was
see.
he up on the?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Did you have one too?
Yeah.
Just see what happens. About halfway back.
You know, and crappies are so popular because people like to eat them because they taste great. And filleting crappies can be a real art. And Mike Hayner, this guy that I work with, is one of the best.
So everybody has their favorite way of cleaning fish, whether it's with an electric knife or a standard blade. For doing panfish, I prefer using a standard bladed knife, and what works best for me is either a small knife or a real thin bladed knife like this Bubba Blade Whiffy. So the first step is to pull the fin back, cut behind the gill, down to the backbone, and then you run along the backbone, then push the knife through, go out the tail, cut back to the rib cage while pressing down, and then you just go around the edges here. And there's one side, and complete the same on the other side. Back to the rib cage, along the backbone. You can feel the blade run along the rib cage there. Go along edge, go around the rib cage, and you got 2 pieces. So after that, what I like to do, skin it. And then there's, on all the fish, there's a little row of bones here just above the rib cage that we just went around. They're called the epipleural bones. And on a bigger fish like this, you can feel them and they usually don't fry out. So I'll take this knife and run it and cut this little V out like so. Cut those bones out. And there you have a done panfish fillet.
The Edge is presented by these and other fine sponsors.
I got him. Good crop. Yeah. Oh. Oh. Nice one. Not as big as I thought, but not bad. We're starting to catch them pretty good. But I'm not asking you for a net yet. That you know, that's the key. You know what we're doing here is, or at least what I'm doing here, I'm mixing it up. I've got 2 rods. Oh boy, it's right in the top of his head. You know, I got 2 rods rigged. One is with a big bite curly tail, in this case orange and chartreuse, and this other one. This works really good if I got a fish really slow. See this little moon-eye jig? This baby moon-eye jig, it's a flat-sided jig. And this is the small one. And I got this fat, big bite tube on this one.
Slab tube.
Tube, but they like to eat this. And I'm kind of mixing it up. I'll hit a spot lock when we get a fish. We'll fan cast around. I'll throw the little fat tube with the moon-eye. And then before I leave, I'll come back through with the curly tail. Then I'll lift knock the troll off a spot lock, move another 25, 30 feet, and do it all over again. And just keep mixing it up. Remember, these fish right now are not just the middle of the day. I mean, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And you know, they're not ultra active, but there's a lot of fish here, and you gotta grind a little bit, but you'll get them.
You know, crappies, I think more than any other species of fish, can be extremely line sensitive. Al's fishing with 5-pound test. I'm fishing with, the main line here is 10-pound Suffolk's nano braid, and I got a 4-pound shocker. But you just want to be conscientious of that, because you can drop down. I've seen it times where you drop down smaller and it'll turn the fish on.
Also, the weight of the jig is so critical. Remember, they feed up. You know, they don't go down for a bait. They always feed up for a bait. So drop speed is critical. What we're fishing here, if you look at my hummingbird, you can look on the back end of it. The outer weeds that we're in here are about 8 feet under the surface. And where we're casting up a little bit higher, the weeds are about 5 feet under the surface, and we're hitting about 10 feet of water. So we're moving these baits right over the top, and there's pockets and holes that these fish are buried in, and a few of the active fish will get just a little bit higher. So I mean, drop speed in crappie fishing when you're casting like this is critical. Rule of thumb is light is always better than heavy. And you're almost floating we're just floating that jig over the tops of those weeds. You get the timing, you'll occasionally touch it. You know, but they're that tentative right now. This is you know, it's not one of those kamikaze bites that you see on some days on crappies where you know, every cast is boom, boom, boom. You know, look at the weather we're fishing, yet we're still catching a fair amount of fish doing this. Oh, Dano, yeah. I'm on him. Good one. Good. Yeah. This is almost a netter, Dan. This is almost a netter crappie. Okay. This might be one of them really big ones. It is. Yeah, give me a net on that one.
No.
Flip that sucker this way. Let me show you this sucker. It's always good
Have a net
when
man.
you got a net, a crappie. You know, there's really a lot of different kinds of rods and reels and equipment you can use to catch these suckers. In this, you know, we're casting predominantly to them now. We're working the inside of a weed line with some broadleaf cabbage on it. And for me, when I'm fishing like this, my favorite rod is, as I got a St. Croix 6.3 medium light. I got 5-pound test, in this case fluorocarbon, Suffolk's fluorocarbon, and I've got a Daiwa 1000 size reel. Perfect combination for crappie fishing. One of my favorite outfits for what we're doing, casting to them.
The Edge is presented by these and other fine sponsors. Have you ever had one of those days when you just cannot get a bite? Everyone else around you's nailing them, and you couldn't get one with dynamite.
You are really good.
Plagued? Do you ever have those days when you're plagued with the Rockies?
If you've ever spent any amount of time on the water, I'm sure you can relate. Well, today I was the whipping post. I started off experimenting with jigs, head designs, and plastics. Spinners, hair, cranks, you name it. Eventually, I broke down and put on exactly what Al had on, and I still couldn't get a bite. I was watching him like a hawk. How long did he count it down? Was he swimming it or pulsing it? And I still never got dialed in. But the one thing I did produce was Rockies, and lots of them.
Rock again?
Yep.
You're the
No
king of
crappies
the
for a
rock.
second.
I'm giving you the rock bass title. You are the
rock
undisputed, Dan. Undisputed.
I don't know if I want that title. The undisputed rock bass champion, Rocky Balboa.
When it comes to catching Rockies on this lake, I wouldn't bet against you.
Now I know Al was kind of jealous. He kept peeking back at me and seeing my subtle Rocky technique, but he couldn't duplicate. I couldn't keep him off my line.
Al gets all the crappies, and I get all the Rockies.
They're down there, ain't they?
Some days you're the dog, some days you're the bone. Today, I'm the bone.
That's a fish. That's a fish. Holy mackerel.
Big bass?
I must have snagged, I got a sturgeon snagged.
You kidding me?
And that's the fun of fishing. Every day it's an experiment with the subtleties of fish nature, location, and presentation.
All I want to do is get it up where we can all look at it and show it to you on the camera, then she can,
And then cut the
then
line.
she can go. Oh, she'd come off.
No!
And when you get it dialed in, you get it dialed in.
Might be a crap. I think it is.
Oh, it
It's
is.
a
I
big
saw
crap.
him. Silver.
Big crap. Oh,
Look at the
Look at
size of that tank.
Oh,
Don't
man.
dump him. You want me to net him?
oh, I got him. That was risky business flipping that one in, but I couldn't help it. But I couldn't help it. I should get a few pictures of these, but we're not going to mess with it. You know, the summertime bite, guy said this isn't fast, it isn't easy on these weed fish, but there's plenty of fish to catch. You know, we came out here in the middle of the day. It's going on, I think, 3:30, 4 o'clock now. I got to get back early. Sky blue, you know, crystal clear water. You can catch these fish, you can catch them. One thing about crappies, they're abundant. There's no such thing, when you catch one crappie, there's no such thing as one crappie there. There's a school of fish there. So sometimes you gotta pick it apart. Yeah, you know, and that's what we did today. We picked it apart, had a good time. Worst conditions you could face, but we caught enough fish. And that's one thing about crappie fishing. You always got a lot to work with.
I could enter the rock bass tournament.
They should have one here. You know, Dan is my nephew, and obviously he's considerably younger than I am, and he hangs around with a lot of a generation that in some cases I don't understand,
Oh, right.
to
Yeah,
say
totally.
the least.
Yeah.
He sends me all kind of stuff to keep me on my toes of what's happening with the young generation. Some of it is good and some of it isn't so good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I was thinking about when we were talking about some of this stuff. When I was growing up, I used to listen to a lot of heavy metal music, you know, and a lot of it didn't faze me back then. I didn't think about it that much. And recently I got a free month-long deal to XM radio, and I hadn't been listening to heavy metal for years, you know, and I put some on and I'm like, oh, could just, without sounding too woo-woo, like my spirit, man, just felt heavy. You know what I mean? There's something about it that just didn't agree with me. And, you know, I started thinking about that, and everybody's heard the old saying, you know, garbage in, garbage out. You are what you eat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Anybody that's been on a diet has done that. And from me being a filmer and editor, if you take a bad picture, it's hard to make it look good. That's what garbage in, garbage out means. You know, and I started thinking about that, and I just am having a hard time nowadays, like even watching the news, because it's like everything is just so negative, and it's like, man, well, I just want something uplifting, you know what I mean? And I can feel it. My spirit man can feel that negativity, and so I just wanted people to be aware of that. You know, you are what you eat, physically and mentally. If you suck a lot of that negative energy up, it has to come out somewhere, and it comes out, you know, in a lot of, you know, dark emotions and hostility.
Yeah, nothing good comes out of thinking that
No.
way. How true it is. The Bible is real clear on helping you think. I'll go to Philippians 8 on this, and it's real clear to the point. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of a good report, if there is any virtue and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things.
Right.
That's pretty darn clear.
Yeah.
Garbage in, garbage out, and good stuff in, good stuff out. Hey, from all of us at The Edge, you have a good, safe fishing season. We'll see you on the water. Thanks again for joining us, Dano.
Yep.